Welcome, everybody. This is Dr. Kristi Albers. I'm one of the audiologists at Stillwater Medical Group in Stillwater, Minnesota. Happy you guys could join us today over your lunch hour. So today, as Donna said, I'll be talking about noise-induced hearing loss and ways to protect your hearing. There's many different forms of hearing loss, and noise-induced hearing loss is the one form of hearing loss we can actually prevent. So education is key on educating people on how to prevent it from occurring. Just quickly, the definition, noise-induced hearing loss is related to damage to sensitive structures and or the nerve fibers of the inner ear from excessively loud sounds. This can occur immediately if someone is exposed to a blast or an impulse sound. I will often see people who've been out hunting and their friend or partner shot the gun and they weren't ready for it, and it was a blast right by their ear, and it's an immediate change in hearing. It can actually occur over time due to repeated exposure. The damage is cumulative from different various noise sources throughout our life. So maybe someone who's been in carpentry, that repeated pounding or sawing can add up over time and cause damage later in life. It can also cause tinnitus, which is also known as ringing in the ears. And tinnitus is often the first sign that damage has occurred to the inner ear structures. I always tell my patients this is a form of hearing loss that affects all ages. It is not just in the older population, and we are actually, unfortunately, seeing a trend of noise-induced hearing loss in younger patients. But this is a CDC study that was done in 2011 and 12 and found that at least 10 million adults in the U.S. under the age of 70 and perhaps up to as many 40 million American adults have features of noise-induced hearing loss. So that's potentially a quarter of our population, which is significant. Pediatrics Journal did a study that indicated nearly 5 million of teens ages 12 to 19 have documented evidence of elevated hearing thresholds related to noise exposure. And this is more than likely related to listening to music at too loud of levels or wearing headphones that don't block out the noise, and so you're turning the music up too loud to be able to hear it. So we as audiologists don't like to see that trend of our teens already having hearing loss, because as they age, it will only worsen. Some of the risk factors associated with noise-induced hearing loss is first, how loud is the sound that the person is exposed to, the decibel level. And that also then relates to the amount of time you're exposed to the sound and how close you are to the sound. So these three factors are really what contribute to a noise being dangerous to someone's hearing. Also, there's a lot of studies showing that a person's genetic makeup is actually a big influencer as to why some people are more genetically at risk of hearing loss due to loud sound and others are not. And there are ongoing studies to understand why some people are more protected than others through their genetics. Other risk factors include occupation, so construction workers, factory workers, farmers, musicians, firemen, police. Anyone that's exposed to sound daily on their job is at risk. I'll get into this, but some of these occupations are governed by the OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, that does require hearing protection if they are at an employer and being exposed to loud sounds. Recreational activities that can put a person at risk, hunting, concerts, toys, motorcycles, snowmobiles, power tools, etc. So how does noise-induced hearing loss happen? What is occurring when we're exposed to noise? As I said before, noise-induced hearing loss can be caused by a single exposure or something that's continuous throughout a lifetime and is cumulative. Exposure can be occupational, recreational, or both. Most as I said, occupations are regulated by OSHA, meaning if someone works in a factory and they're a large enough employer, OSHA will be monitoring that noise level and require hearing protection. This protects the employee, but it also protects the employer from later risk of being sued for noise-induced hearing loss. This probably all started to be regulated in the late 90s, early 2000s. Unfortunately, though, some occupations like construction, the employer may not be big enough to be required by the federal government to have OSHA regulations. And so they may make hearing protection optional. I see this a lot in people I see that work construction. They said, oh, my employer said we can wear it, but we don't have to. And it's unfortunate that can occur, because a lot of times for safety reasons they don't want to wear hearing protection, but there are ways to protect yourself and still be able to practice good safety when you are around noise and needing to communicate with others. Recreational is obviously up to the individual to protect themselves, and this really comes down to education. I see a lot of patients who, as a teenager, maybe went out and hunted and didn't know anything about noise hurting their hearing, and now as they're an older adult, they have noise-induced hearing loss, and they all say they wish they would have known when they were younger that they were damaging their hearing. You know, snow blowing, if you're out running the snowblower for an extended amount of time, concerts are incredibly dangerous. Vikings games, I've been at one that was at dangerous levels as well. We don't understand how dangerous some of these environments can be. So to further understand, I'm going to go through how sound is measured and how it impacts our hearing and auditory systems. So sound is measured in decibels, and sounds at or above 85 decibels, that's kind of the threshold that's been determined through a lot of research that will cause hearing loss. And again, it needs to be a certain length of time and a certain distance from the person to be a risk factor. So it's not just the level of sound that influences if a sound will cause damage for somebody. This is a noise thermometer. I think the font is kind of hard to read, unfortunately, on my slide, but I just wanted to show, to make some sounds relative. So here's our 85 point, the threshold of when sound becomes dangerous. For reference, normal conversational speech is around 50 to 60 decibels. A whisper is down around 35 to 25. Zero is a sound that's not detected by a lot of adults. Maybe younger children still have hearing at zero. So this is the range of just being able to detect sound if you have normal hearing. When we get up into the 105s, 115s, we're looking at concerts, chainsaws, jackhammers. Up in the 135 to 45 would be, an airplane or something loud like that. So just a reference. High city traffic is something that's right around 85 decibels. So if you were standing on the roadside or walking along a sidewalk on a busy road, that could be about the level. Here's another helpful chart to see. So how the level of sound works with the time exposure. So OSHA, and this chart and thermometer are from the Dangerous Decibels website. It's a wonderful nonprofit organization that educates younger adults and teens on the effects of noise. And what this chart is demonstrating is how the level of sound increases, the allowed exposure time decreases. So every 3 dB increase in the sound level results in reducing your exposure by half. So back to that 85 level of being traffic noise, you could be around that for 8 hours consecutively and not get damage. But once you go over that 8 hours, your auditory system could have damage. Going up just by 3 decibels, safe exposure is 4 hours, and this is consecutive exposure time. So thinking back to a sporting event that I was at the new stadium, they will give the decibel rating to show how loud everyone's cheering. It was in the range of 112 to 115. That means we were safe for less than a minute, possibly 30 seconds. So if the crowd is screaming for more than 30 seconds or a minute, we've all been exposed to some dangerous levels. Concerts, they're right up there at 109 to 115, sometimes louder if you're right by the speakers. Those people are at concerts for 2 to 4 hours. And looking at this chart, when you go above 100 decibels, you're only safe for 15 minutes. And that's the scary part of it, because there's a lot of noise in our environment that is over 100 decibels, and that is not a very long amount of time. So to further understand how noise-induced hearing loss occurs, I'm going to go through how we hear. How is sound entering our inner ear, and why does it damage our inner ear structure? So this is our pinna, our outer ear, and we have ear canals that channel the sound into our middle ear. So we are anatomically built for sound to be captured by our pinna, and then the sound waves travel down the ear canal and vibrate our eardrum. And the eardrum you can think of as kind of like a trampoline. It vibrates and then sets the 3 middle ear bones, also called the ossicles, into a chain reaction vibration. Inside this snail-like organ is our inner ear, also called the cochlea. And that's a fluid-filled organ with thousands of hair cells floating in that fluid. And as those sound waves are transferred from the middle ear bones into the cochlea, the fluid then vibrates to the frequency of the sound wave that has entered our system. Inside that inner ear, we have tiny hair cells, also known as stereocilia. And as those are vibrated, as the vibrations come in, the fluid inside the cochlea will ripple and cause a traveling waveform along what's called the basilar membrane, which is the membrane that houses all these tiny, amazing little hair cell structures. And those hair cells start to move up and down, causing the stereocilia then send an electrical signal to the brain by that up and down movement. When sound waves come in at high levels, this fluid-filled organ, as you can imagine, starts rippling pretty high. And those hair cells can only take so much of that. And this is a picture from, again, dangerous decibels. This is a section from the basilar membrane with the hair cells. Those are healthy, and this is what they look like after they've been exposed to loud sounds. So instead of standing straight up and vibrating normal, they flop over. And sometimes they can come back. Oftentimes they stay flopped over, and that's what we call dead hair cells, which leads to hearing loss, ringing, and other signs of the noise-induced hearing loss. So as you can see, our inner ear and hearing system, albeit powerful, is very sensitive to damage if not treated well. So what are the signs that noise-induced hearing loss has occurred? The first sign is someone may experience what's called a temporary threshold shift. So if you've ever been to a concert or a sporting event and you leave and you feel like your ears are plugged or your hearing is muffled, you're experiencing what's called a temporary threshold shift. So looking back at those hair cells, they've been damaged somewhat, and they're maybe flopped over a little bit. They're worn out from those big sound waves coming into that organ, and you're experiencing a temporary shift in hearing. This hearing decrease may occur for several hours. It could last up to 2 days. We will often see recovery at day 2 if the hearing is going to recover. Our inner ear, although sensitive, is very resilient and can come back. Someone may experience tinnitus, ringing in the ears. I remember going to concerts in my 20s and leaving and having ringing in my ears. This was before I became an audiologist and knew what I was doing to my inner ear. And like I said, our inner ear is very resilient, and so people will think, oh, I lost my hearing for a day, but it came back no big deal. I just won't wear hearing protection. It's not going to hurt it permanently. People don't realize that those consecutive exposures throughout our life are cumulative and will cause damage later. Unfortunately, some people that do have noise-induced hearing loss, it isn't always temporary. It may be permanent. And again, this can occur from a single exposure or consecutive cumulative exposures. And some of the signs are ringing in the ears, tinnitus that doesn't go away. I've had some people say the gunshot went off and they immediately heard ringing and it's never gone away. Your ears may feel plugged. You may be asking for repetition. You may not be able to hear high-pitched sounds, alarms, birds, those kind of sounds, or speech from people sounds muffled. So as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, noise-induced hearing loss is the only hearing loss we can prevent from occurring. Yes, living a healthy lifestyle, you can prevent some age-related changes to your auditory system, but most of that is genetically driven as we age. With noise-induced hearing loss, we are, again, as I mentioned, seeing some genetic influences, but if you're protecting yourself, you can protect it from occurring throughout life. So what are some of the ways we can protect ourselves? Hearing protection is available in many different styles, and I always tell my patients there's a different style that's best for what activity you're doing. Kind of the first line of defense I think a lot of people reach for is the insert foam plug, and it's an excellent start. It's kind of a one-size-fit-all approach. However, they are available in different sizes because there are different shaped ears. A lot of people with smaller ears have a hard time wearing these. So I do alert patients they are available in smaller pediatric sizes because the key to the effectiveness with these is they have to be inserted properly. I will see people at concerts and sporting events and they don't have them in, and I know they aren't doing anything. So if they're almost falling out of your ear, they're not inserted properly. 3M is one of the biggest manufacturers of foam earplugs. There's also Howard Light's products. Those are probably the two most popular. I like this diagram that 3M provides because it's showing you the importance of the insertion depth of foam earplugs. As you can see with the red X, it's sticking out partially from his ear canal. This is almost flush. So this is what you want it to look like when you're wearing them. And that's why it's key to finding a size that works the best for your ears. Insert foam plugs typically are not something you reuse. I do have patients that will reuse them and wiping them off. You can put yourself at risk for a bacterial infection in your ear canal if you're not having clean fingers and hands to put them in and out again, but most often these are disposable and they're great for, you know, going to the concert or a sporting event. They're great to keep in your car because then you always have them if you forget when you're going somewhere. Musicians tend not to wear these because these do somewhat of a flat reduction, and so it can alter the sound quality, and that's why a lot of heavy concert goers don't love them either because they think it alters the sound quality. So, but for people mowing the lawn, snow blowing, those kind of things, it's a great, handy, accessible way to protect yourself. Over-the-ear muffs is probably the next most common form. I don't have a picture of these, but these are the headphones you're used to seeing. I really love this option for a lot of reasons. It can fit over any size of ear, ear shape, ear canal. There's small ones for children. I see a lot of babies and small toddlers wearing these at sporting events. They also have ways to still communicate. So a lot of hunters will wear some of these because when there's not a shot or sound, they're amplifying so you can still communicate. I know I have a pair for when I'm mowing the lawn. They are so noise reducing that I can actually play music at a normal safe level as I'm doing lawn mowing. And they're very affordable. They come in a lot of different price ranges. They're very accessible at any home improvement store. You can order them online. They're very reusable, so it's very sanitary, taking them on and off. And I recommend these a lot for construction guys who need to take them on and off to be able to talk to coworkers. The insert foam plugs, you're having to re-squeeze them, put them in with dirty fingers. That's not ideal. So again, choosing the right protection for the right activity is key. So over-the-ear muffs is, a great option for a lot of different activities. The next section is custom. So a lot of people don't realize that you can have custom hearing protection made, and this is probably the go-to option for people who are repeatedly exposed to noise. So we're talking dentists, musicians, construction workers who maybe find the other two forms uncomfortable, difficult to fit ears, someone who has different shape to them and the foam earplugs don't work. A lot of people don't like the feel of an earmuff over their ear. It makes them feel claustrophobic or closed in, so they do opt for more of a custom device. And the great thing with the custom is we have a lot of different options to choose from in regards to the shape and size and also the filter. So this is one example that we fit quite often here at our clinic. Westone is one of the manufacturers we work with, and they have a line that's called Defend Ear. And within that line, there are ones for concerts. So as you can see, these are a more discreet canal type mold, and they have a filter right there. And these come with two options. One, a complete plug, so I could put that in if I'm going to mow my lawn. And then they have a specialized music filter. So that filter will equally reduce all the different pitches and not affect the sound quality of the music. I have quite a few band members, band directors, and musicians that wear these. I have a lot of Minnesota orchestra players that wear these. A lot of teenagers, it's becoming quite common to have them in marching bands, which is great because those kids are exposed to a lot of noise. So great option for someone who is exposed regularly. Also, there is a motorsports one for riding a motorcycle or maybe a snowmobile. It will reduce in the area of the engine but still allow some communication. So we love having those specialized filters to fit on people depending upon their activity. And a lot of the filters are interchangeable. There's also full shell options that would fit in your the bowl of the ear that really gives maximum protection. So I've fit that on some factory workers who really are requiring more of a custom option for them. And they range in price too, and they're quite affordable and last, if taken care of, they can last many years. For musicians who are in bands and want to be able to hear other bandmates, or maybe someone who works in security and they're needing to protect from a concert but still hear other security staff, there are options called in-the-ear monitors. So you'll see musicians wearing them on stage, or you'll see security personnel wearing them. It fits in their ear, it's made for their ear, but then it's connected to an audio system. So it's protecting you, but then still feeding you an audio system that you need to hear at a safe level. So great option. Also for industrial workers who need to hear maybe overhead announcements and those sorts of things. For my hunters that don't want to wear an earmuff, we have amazing hunting devices available for them that can be custom made. And the nice thing is for someone who maybe has high-frequency hearing loss but isn't quite needing hearing aids, these also offer a little amplification in order to hear environmental sounds around you, not only hearing what you're hunting, but hearing the people around you for safety reasons, and it allows you to communicate. So as you're walking along hunting or you're at the shooting range, if there's no sound, they're amplifying for you. As soon as a gunshot goes off, it's within milliseconds, the device shuts down and protects the individual's hearing. Some earmuffs also have this capability, but they're just not as comfortable for some people. This is the Starkey Sound Gear custom protection, is also a line we sell, the Sound Gear hearing line along with the West Tone Defend Ear. Again, it has different modes. You can have a wind noise protection. You can have the high frequency boost if there's a little hearing loss present. So really, really wonderful option to offer our hunters. So I tell my patients all the time, just because you exposed yourself at a younger age doesn't mean you can't stop that exposure. You can still protect the hearing you have left. So what are the next steps to do to protect your hearing? I always tell people, if you've been exposed, if you've left an event and your hearing felt plugged or muffled, or you had ringing in your ears, you assaulted your inner ear, and I would obtain a baseline audiogram. So an audiogram is a thorough hearing evaluation. We do a case history, not only about noise exposure, but overall medical history, family history, and we test your hearing. It takes less than 30 minutes. It's a great baseline evaluation to determine, A, the status of your hearing, B, if we see any signs of noise-induced hearing loss. We can tell based on the configuration or pattern of the hearing loss if it's been influenced by noise. The region of 2 to 4 kilohertz is where our hearing is most susceptible to damage, and so we will actually see what's called noise notches in your hearing. If your noise history matches to the audiogram, we can usually tell people we're pretty confident the noise has caused that hearing loss. At that appointment, we can give you samples of the foam plugs we have. We do have different sizes available. I give them to all my teenagers that come in because it's hard to find the smaller sizes. And we can also quickly consult with you on what might be the best other type of protection to purchase for at home for recreational activities or occupationally. If you're interested in custom hearing protection, we do have consultation appointments for that. It doesn't necessarily require a hearing test to be done for this. It's nice just to know if you have had any hearing loss yet, but an audiogram is definitely not required to obtain the custom hearing. At this appointment, we will go through what type of noise sources you have during your daily lifestyles, occupationally, recreationally, and then we go over all the different custom options that would be most ideal for you. At that appointment, if you're interested in proceeding, we will take ear impressions of your ear. It's basically filling your ear with some silicone and waiting 3 to 5 minutes for it to make a mold. We then send that off to the manufacturer, and they digitize those ear mold impressions to build your custom molds. So the fit of these molds has really improved over the years of digital scanning and the making of the custom molds. So really a quite easy process. If you're interested in having a baseline hearing test to see if you have any permanent damage to your hearing from noise, you can give the clinic a call and ask to be set up with an appointment with the audiologist. If you're interested in going through some custom hearing protection, it's a no-charge appointment where you can come in and we'll go through the different options for you and provide you pricing and take a look at what might be the best for your activities. Okay, well, thank you so much for attending. It was wonderful to have some of you here. And again, please give us a call. Our number is on the screen right now. If you have any questions, just ask the call center to connect you to the audiology department if you do have any further questions. Have a great day.